Well, folks, we are back in the studio after a little summer vacation, watching the Olympics and watching the start of the North American hard court swing. Some would say the best time of the year. There's been a couple big shocks so far. As we've already covered, Djokovic went to Tokyo in 2 events and came back with 0 medals. Shock. Nadal entered the Washington ATP 500, which was a bit of a shocker in the first place, and lost in his second match to Lloyd Harris. Also a shocker. Maybe not as much because he's been off, had a little injury. We'll get into it. Jensen Brooksby is a name you need to remember. He's taking over right now, currently playing Jannik Sinner in the semifinals of Washington. And Nick Kyrgios, the man, is loving the slice on Instagram. So we're going to get into all this. We're going to break down the National Bank Open in Toronto and Montreal in the draw because we are there in the virtual media room this week. So we got a busy week. We got to get into it all. Thanks for being back here on the show, folks. Welcome to The Slice.
I go fair.
You've been watching The Slice. We're coming at you from the Delray Beach Open, Miami Open, down here at the grounds.
This is Novak Djokovic.
We are here with the man, Milos Raonic.
Welcome to The Slice. Well, okay, folks, there is a lot going on, and we're going to get into it. That's what I like to do. I like to have a lot of things to get into and just talk the talk with you guys, the tennis fans who make The Slice work. We're in the media room of the National Bank Open, which is the Masters 1000 in Canada, as they would call it, but that's my home country, so it's like the biggest tournament in Canada, and we're stoked to be able to have been given a media credential, so thanks Tennis Canada for finally recognizing us, and for the National Bank Open for giving us the media credential. The U.S. Open, we call it the North American Hardcourt Swing, is brought to you by the Front Row Show on the Slice Patreon. That is where, if you really like our journalism, you can get in there, and for a couple bucks a month, you can support the show, our growth. We have bills to pay. That helps us pay them. And it also, you get behind-the-scenes access to the show. I do an extra show called the Front Row Show here in our studio, as well as when we're in media rooms like the National Bank Open, you can suggest questions for me to ask the players on your behalf. So it's cool. Thanks for checking it out. The link is below. So subscribe and like, obviously, and get your new tennis gear from Courtside Sports. Thanks to our sponsors, Bear Mountain and Courtside Sports. Legendary. We've got news. This is a little bit of old news, but we haven't really broken it down in its full extent. Djokovic leaves Tokyo with 0 hardware. That's a shocker. Is there an Olympic curse? I think it's official now for Djokovic, as he's played 4 Olympics in singles. He won bronze in his first one when he was like 12 years old, and he hasn't won any medals since. It's been shocking for him, and this was probably his worst losses, as he went in with the obvious favorite. He's won all 3 of the slams so far this year. He's by far the best player in the world. Did the pressure get to him? I don't know. Let's just think. It's not like it's, in the grand scheme of things, the Olympics is not the biggest thing. We all know that the Grand Slams is the thing that really counts. But players do seem to want these gold medals, obviously. And they are important because it's the Olympics. But they obviously don't count for points, and they don't get any money from them. But it's for country pride. And Djokovic is very patriotic for Serbia. So he was obviously disappointed. I didn't see much of it as far as press conferences. It was hard to get any media access at all at the Olympics. But why did this happen? He lost to Zverev, which we broke down in the video. I already made an instant reaction to it. He lost to Zverev, who Zverev was playing absolutely red hot. So he would have beaten any player in the world with that level on that day. And Djokovic, though, being up a set and a break, it was a pretty big shock loss for him. Some people called it a choke. I didn't, but I said if that's not a choke, then a lot of things that other people have called chokes aren't chokes. So that was a loss that made sense based on the way that Zverev played. But then to lose in the bronze medal match against Pablo Carreño Busta, who played well, but Djokovic, it was just off the rocker. Smashed his racket, threw it in the crowd, the non-existent crowd, and just kind of fell apart. An absolute unraveling. Pablo Carreño Busta showed up, played great tennis, played the tennis he had to do, but obviously there was something off with Djokovic then, and it could have been a lot of things. People are saying, he talked about afterwards, his shoulder, he has something wrong with his shoulder. Obviously the heat exhaustion from the weather there in Tokyo was insane. Did he get tight trying to get the Golden Slam for his country? Probably. Did he play too much tennis playing in the mixed doubles event as well? Probably. Ended up pulling out of the bronze medal match in that. Obviously, he was too injured to play. So just a bit of a huge disappointment for Djokovic and his fans going to the Olympics. Darren Cahill said it best, though, as far as the Golden Grand Slam, if Djokovic wins the U.S. Open and completes the Grand Slam, nobody is going to go and they say, yeah, but he didn't win the Olympics. that does not really matter in the grand scheme of things, getting the Grand Slam, because nobody has on the men's side has won the Grand Slam since Rod Laver, obviously. So that's a huge deal. And that train is still rolling. But the Olympic dream, he's going to have to try again in 2024 in Paris, but he will be like 37 then, and he will, I don't think, would be a favorite at that point. But you never know. He is the bionic man. He could just never age, but we will see. What are you guys' thoughts on Djokovic at the Olympics? That's pretty interesting. Nadal loses to Lloyd Harris in his second match in the third round at Washington ATP 250. We had a guy, Julian, on the ground doing the journalistic underground reporting that the Slice is founded on, what I started doing. He's in the U.S. I can't get out of Canada because of our restrictions. He's in the U.S. on the ground, was able to get some sweet footage of Nick Kyrgios, Nadal doing tweeners, all this.
What's up, guys? This is Julian from The Slice here. I'm at the City Open right now, and I'm going to be taking you guys around the grounds for the day.
And what he said is Nadal didn't look his typical dominant self. His ball didn't seem to have the same topspin and pop, and opponents like Jack Sock didn't seem to mind it as much as they usually would. So he had a tough three-setter against Jack Sock, which was like a classic match. Shout out to Jack Sock, who's on the comeback train as well. And then against Lloyd Harris looked to just be cracking the ball, and it was a tight match. He got to one match point, and that's all Lloyd Harris needed. One with a lob, and Nadal was out. So Nadal did say during the tournament that his foot was bothering him. We all know he has that, and if you didn't know, he has a disease, part of his foot, where it's really bothered him his whole career. It's been the source of a lot of his injury woes, and that he said was flaring up. He said it was better in the Lloyd Harris match. Always honest, Rafa, but he still lost the match. So that could be a bunch of different things. Maybe his lack of play since the French Open, obviously a little bit of rust. We see that with these older guys like Federer, who's pulled out of Toronto and Cincinnati before the U.S. Open, which is just a horrible sign. The knee's still bothering him, apparently. So Nadal, will he be able to find the form he needs to win another major? He hasn't won a major since last year. He currently doesn't hold any of the Grand Slams. He hasn't won it since the 2020 French Open. That's going to be a big question for him going into the U.S. Open. He's going to be seeded, I think, number 4 or worse, as Tsitsipas is going to number 3 this week on Monday. So it's going to be interesting. He could play Djokovic in the quarterfinals potentially, or he could be, he could have a lot tougher matches earlier on in the U.S. Open, where, like I said, all the younger guys feel more comfortable. So that's very interesting. What are your thoughts on Nadal, Rafa fans? Where are you at? Let us know what your guy is doing. Jenson Brooksby, remember the name. He's wearing Womo Sport. Womo's been great to us. They sent us clothes. They sent me this bucket hat, which I've been wearing on the golf course. Jenson Brooksby's crushing people, and he's just looking confident doing it. He was absolutely murdering the challenger scene for all of 2021. I think he's won 3 titles. Should have looked that up. But everyone's talking about his game, his tennis IQ. Who does he look like? Who does he play like? Murray. Andy Murray said he looks like Florian Mayer with the way he plays. Just good, amazing tennis fundamentals. And honestly, he looks better than anyone else out there, I think, in the Womo Sport gear. So shout out to him. Shout out to Womo Sport, who has been good to the Slice. He's got very kind of unique style. He's playing right now against Jannik Sinner in the semifinals. He actually just lost the first set. Jannik Sinner's obviously actually younger, so technically, but he's been on the scene for a lot longer on the top level. But yeah, big game from Jenson Brooksby. He's a battler, which you love to see. He fights and he loves getting the crowd amped up. He's a counter puncher. He's got great strokes though, and yeah, obviously a super great future. Remember the name Jenson Brooksby. And now on to the National Bank Open preview. So National Bank Open, presented by Rogers, I think it's called, is the Masters 1000 in Canada, my home country. We're in the 6. There is amazing first round matchups. The draw is great. It's a look into, again, more of the future of tennis. We only got Nadal out of the big 3 there. Djokovic pulled out. Nadal's playing, unless he pulls out even sooner to the time, which could happen. You never know. We're going to take a look at the potential quarterfinal draws. We also got some amazing, spicy first-round matchups, which Nick Kyrgios has shared on his Instagram. He shared 2 pieces of content. One, the baseline video that Julian took from Washington. He shared that, and this one. So Nick Kyrgios, King Kyrgios, is just loving the Slice on Instagram, and so you should too. So go follow us at the Slice Tennis for sure if you're not already. But the Toronto Masters is going to be great. So much potential there. Denis Shapovalov is obviously our big Canadian guy, our main one there. He was in the press room today. We're in the press room, as I've said, and I was able to ask him about his Wimbledon performance and how he talked the talk about being able to beat Djokovic. He had the game to do it, obviously. Djokovic did admit that he was a better player for the first 2 sets. And here's what I asked about. I asked him basically how he's going to take that confidence into here, and here's a clip of what he said to me.
I mean, I think it's always important to back yourself and in sports in general, but especially in tennis, because if you're going out in the match and you don't fully believe you're going to win, then you obviously don't have a chance. And especially in this sport where anyone can beat anyone on any given day. So for me, it's just, I mean, I've always backed myself against any player, but especially during that Wimbledon, I felt like my game was really at the level to go far and lift that title, So for me, it was pretty not inspiring, but it was a good feeling, coming off from that tournament and as well, all the emotions of the 2 weeks kind of got to me, and that's why I had the reaction after the match.
Yeah, so love seeing that confidence from Shapo El Shap. Let's take a look at the Toronto potential quarterfinals. We got Daniil Medvedev as the first seed playing potentially Hubert Hurkacz, who's 1-0 in that head-to-head, obviously back at Wimbledon, beating Medvedev. So Medvedev's going to be out for revenge on that. Then we got Shapovalov versus Rublev. They're tied 2-2 in their head-to-head. That would be an amazing matchup on the hard courts to watch. Then we have Stefano Tsitsipas versus Casper Ruud. Amazing matchup to watch as well. Tsitsipas made the French Open final. Casper Ruud won 3 250s in a row on the clay after grass. There's a little bit of controversy about that. Some people are saying, why is there clay after grass? Nick Hero says that at first. He always says something. He said something in the past about exterminating the dirt rats, and then him and Ruud kind of got into it on a funny way on Twitter. That was funny to see. Casper Ruud leads that head-to-head 1-0 back in at Madrid this year. Ruud got the win against Tsitsipas. And then we got Diego Schwartzman potentially playing Rafa Nadal if they both made the quarterfinal. Rafa leads that head-to-head 12-1. 11-1. So I would definitely take Nadal in that matchup. But that's an exciting field. You cannot tell me that this field is not exciting. We got Kyrgios versus Opelka in the first round. We got friend of the show. So Kyrgios I think he's an official friend of the show. He's shared like 3 of our posts. We got friend of the show, Dan Evans, versus Alexander Bublik in the first round. So what are you guys looking forward to? We got the Masters 1000 in Toronto, our home country, and then we got the Cincinnati Masters, and then we got the U.S. Open. So many points are on the line, so much potential shuffling in the rankings. Djokovic going for the Grand Slam. Another young guy trying to get their first slam. Nadal trying to get his 21st slam. Federer hopefully coming back from the brink of retirement with injuries to play some good tennis again. Would love to see that. Let me know what you guys think about what's going on the ATP Tour. I've tried to do my best to summarize it all. Shocking losses for Djokovic in Tokyo. Nadal lost a quick one in Washington. He'll hopefully recover. What do you think about all that? Links are below to support the slice. I appreciate you. Jump in the front row show, and we will see you there behind the scenes at this year's Masters 1000 in Toronto. And thank you for the support. We'll see you soon.